Welcome to another session of Peer Up. I am so happy to see all of you guys here. Thank you for taking your time this morning. I see some new people here, so for those who aren't familiar with Peer Up, I'm just going to give a short introduction about us. Peer Up is a nonprofit organization. We host free interactive sessions with industry experts and alumni, and they share their tips and experiences about high school, both academic and not academic. So, just a few quick house rules. To ensure a smooth session, please stay on mute and keep your video off to minimize distractions. Maintain respectful communication in the chat, and questions are highly encouraged in the chat box at any time. The session will also be recorded and shared on YouTube. You can also find recordings of our other peer up sessions through our website peer-up.org or our YouTube channel Peer Up. Now I am very excited to introduce our speaker for today, Maneesh Rajagopal. He is a graduate from UCLA and has a master's in biomedical sciences. And today he will be sharing his thoughts and learnings about academic excellence. Hi, Manish. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it very much. Now it's over to you.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. I'm excited to be here as well. And high school is definitely a good learning experience. It's a good time for making sure that you establish study habits for the future. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction, and then from there, I'll let Rasika and Ritesh ask a lot of questions that I can delve more into a lot of those topics. So just a little bit about me. I'm from Redmond. I went to Redmond High School, and I'm currently working in Boston. And like Rustica said, I graduated from UCLA. I have a master's in biomedical sciences, and in my free time, I enjoy playing basketball. I enjoy running, traveling, and making new connections with different people. So, um, as an introduction for academic excellence as a whole, I think like we define it as just consistency with achievement across subjects, whether that's through effort, through study strategies, and it reflects your curiosity, discipline, personal growth, and a lot of qualities that are important for overall life experience. So it's more than just grades, it's about mastering those skills and applying that knowledge. And the reason it matters is it opens doors to top colleges, scholarships if needed, and a lot of career opportunities. So building those habits of resilience and time management and critical thinking, that's definitely something that will carry through, including in college and beyond. So I think it's important to foster that confidence and that lifelong love of learning. Um, so there's four major things I want to talk about in terms of the tips that we need to achieve academic excellence. The first is study habits, whether that starts with setting clear academic goals, target GPA, course priorities. The second would be time management. The third is organizational tools. And the fourth is building rapport with teachers, which I think is something that is overlooked a lot, but it is definitely an important aspect, especially in high school. And I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but with other stuff such as asking for recommendations, building rapport with teachers has a lot more applications outside of simply just achieving good grades. So uh, specifically here with with time management, so I'll delve a little bit more into that. So uh, I think one of the most important things that I found from my personal experience was with uh, with organizational tools, and that's something that I've found has helped me a lot over the time. So even something as basic as Google Calendar and Google Tasks changed my life in high school and in college. Making sure that on a daily basis, you know what you want to achieve and you know what's coming in the future so you can plan your time effectively, I think is really important. Um, with organizational tools, using planners, digital calendars, these all kind of go hand in hand. Um, and there's different things you can try. So a lot of this is individualized, but with with study techniques such as the Pomodoro technique, which is something I learned in college that I would have really liked to apply in high school, that's that's something where you study for 25 to 30 minutes, you take 5-minute breaks in between, and that helps your brain stay focused. So if you find certain things that help you learn and you find certain things that are effective, those are really important. Um, So yeah, and then from there, the next steps would just be uh, to reflect on current habits, what's working, what needs tweaks, to set academic goals in semesters and track your progress from there. And as I mentioned earlier, just make sure to reach out to teachers, mentors, reach out to peers around you to build that foundation that you need to succeed in high school and afterwards. Um, so yeah, and Ritu and Rosika, you can go ahead and ask questions from here.
Great. Love that you said all that. And for now, we have some pre-submitted questions
Okay.
that some people asked earlier that we'll ask you. And so one of our things was that balancing academics with everything else, like just working with family, friends, your hobbies, and just downtime can be tough. And so, how do we manage our time outside of school to stay productive without burning out? And were there any routines or tools or something of that sort that helped you stay on track?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's important when you balance things to know what you want to prioritize. So specifically, let's say during your freshman year, you know you want to establish some sort of volunteering aspect in your applications, and you know that you want to make sure that you stay on top of your mental health. In that case, one thing that I would do is make sure that I'm making progress towards each of those during each week. So you can time block and make it on a smaller daily basis, and I think that would be really helpful. So in this specific example, if you want to establish that volunteering basis, make sure you spend maybe 4 hours in a week, and then outside of that, you're making sure to spend a time with social gatherings, sports, whatever it is that you have in personal outlets. So when you make sure to do each of these, like, and spend time on each of those, but have something that tracks what you're spending time on. That way it doesn't feel overwhelming, and you know that you're making progress towards each of your goals. So start with setting goals, make sure that you're tracking your progress, and go from there.
Here's the next question. It's about AP classes. So for students considering AP classes, it can be hard to know which ones to take and how many to handle at once.
Mhm.
We were wondering, how did you decide which AP courses were right for you, and what strategies did you use to manage the workload across multiple challenging classes?
So the first thing with APs is to make sure that you pick what you're interested in. And a lot of times what I did personally was I took the most challenging courses. So I took as many APs as I could. But it's not necessarily the most important thing, so if you feel like you can't handle that, that's totally okay, but I would suggest that you should track, what I did personally was I made an Excel sheet, and this is something I did in college as well, and this is also something that is really useful, is learning how to use spreadsheets, and what you should do is you should track your classes over 4 years. I know that's sometimes can be a lot of work, but you should plan ahead, and I think that will take you a long way. Specifically, you can avoid having overly difficult schedules. So, uh, if you instead of taking 7 APs that are all the most difficult, you can talk to people around you, figure out which APs are maybe lower homework loads, lower test loads, and which APs are more intensive, and then you can balance that. So maybe you can take certain APs in one semester that are more difficult and mix that with lighter APs and change that in different schedules. Instead of having one semester where all your hardest classes are together, you can, if you track and you plan ahead, using tools like spreadsheets, you can make sure to uh, you can make sure that you can handle those course loads really easily.
Okay, and so now we have our next question for you, and this one is about test prep. So, when test prep starts feeling overwhelming, especially when you have multiple subjects, how do you like sort of adapt your test preparation to that type of situation? And are there any are there any techniques or habits that help you change your preparation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll talk about during finals weeks where you have maybe five tests in different subjects, and you don't have a ton of time to prepare in between. So you need to make sure that you're staying on top of all of them at the same time. And that can definitely be overwhelming when you feel like you're going into every test not at the most prepared. So this is one of the reasons I brought up Google Tasks earlier. What I did personally is if there was a certain way to prepare for each test, I would start with that. So let's say it's AP biology and there's different labs and worksheets that are posted on the class website. Those are something that I would want to review before a test normally. So I would put that into Google Tasks. Okay, on Monday, I want to make sure that I review the labs and the worksheets. But I also have physics, which I know, let's say physics is a difficult subject for me. I know that I want to do practice problems. So then I'll say practice problems, the XYZ worksheet. I'll put that on that. And I'll put that on Monday too. And I know that I can't do so many things. So the next day, this is all the week before. The next day I'll put um, something for AP Environmental Science or whatever class I'm taking. So if you block each class and figure out what exactly you want to do for each subject, by the end you'll say, okay, I'm walking to the test. I know I've gone through the worksheets. I know I've gone um, through all the labs. I know I've done the practice problems. I feel prepared. And in that sense, when you have multiple tests day by day by day, um, you can walk into it feeling confident and you can succeed.
Yeah, so the next question is like I know sometimes life happens like with family emergencies and other illnesses and students can fall behind. So if you've ever missed like a big chunk of the syllabus, how did you catch up quickly and effectively?
So I think for this question, this is actually really important. Your social circles and the people around you are very helpful. For me, it was really important to reach out to the people around me, which started with my friends and my peers and classmates. So those are resources in their own right. You can talk to people, especially people who you know who are doing really well in classes. Talk to them and figure out what they're doing to prepare. Talk to them about how they're applying resources, and especially if you miss time see what their opinion on or their notes or talk to other people around you. And another thing that's really important is communication with your superiors. This is a lifelong skill that you need to master. So talk to your teachers, send them an email, tell them what's going on. Don't be don't like be genuine when you talk to them and they'll respond in a genuine manner. A lot of the teachers, they want to help you. So if life happens, you miss something, for the most part, they'll be understanding, and you need to make sure to talk to the people around you.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was a great response. And for the next question, this one's about procrastination.
Mhm.
And so when people procrastinate, obviously assignments pile up. And how do you build the discipline to sort of avoid procrastination and complete assignments on time?
So how to blend okay, so with discipline, this is something that everyone it's gonna be different. For me personally, I had to figure out how to have genuine interest in each subject. So if I wasn't genuinely interested, I found it really difficult to want to spend time preparing for it or like have an assignment on it. So you need to apply what you learn. A lot of times you don't want to just go through high school and feel like, oh, I'm just going to this class and I'm not learning anything and I'm bored. That's the worst way to build discipline. You have to find ways to be genuinely interested in the world around you and having curiosity and learning how to apply things. That's really important for all your subjects. So, for me, something like let's say physics might not have been super interesting at first because I'm more of someone who's really interested in bodily health, and I think with all of that, if you learn how to figure out, okay, if I do this in real life, this is like an application of a class subject, then you're genuinely interested in it and you'll want to study for it and you won't want to procrastinate. If you go into it with interest, it's just like anything else that you really enjoy in life, whether that's sports or other hobbies. So it starts with that, and then at the end of the day, you have to dig in. You have to figure out what motivates you, and for me, that might be through reflection, but that's a very individualized thing that you'll have to figure out through trial and error. I see a question on the chat. Does course selection matter for GPA improvement? Course selection does matter. In college specifically, there will be times where there's different professors. In high school, there might be a different professor or a different teacher that's teaching a subject that might be more easy or more difficult. So if that's something that really stresses you out for GPA improvement, you could talk to people who have already taken the class, figure out which professor is the best for learning, which professor is the best for tests, and a lot of times there'll be different teachers that have each subject. So it's very much on you to gather that information. But overall, I think what's most important for GPA improvement is those study habits that you build. So those planning techniques that I talked about earlier, those study habits, those will carry you through regardless of course selection.
Thank you. I know that having a good relationship with teachers, especially in high school, can make a big difference in your academic journey. So I was wondering, like, what suggestions do you have to build rapport with your teachers, and how did this like support your learning or growth?
That's a great question. So teachers are one of the most important parts of your high school experience, of your application process, and of your grade improvement. For me, it's the most important thing is to be genuine and interested. Everyone has a different personality, and it's not necessarily a good thing, in my opinion, to force something or be overly excited for things. Just be genuine. If you're someone who's more reserved and more quiet, a teacher will appreciate if you are yourself and you talk to them that way. If you're someone who's very energetic, and the teacher will love that too. So be genuine. Become almost friends with the teachers is what I would say. Treat them like a friend, and learn how to communicate. Another thing is it's a life skill to learn how to talk to superiors. So you want to make sure that especially your superiors that they like you, and I think that's where being genuine is important. So that's how I would start. But yeah, each personality is different. Teachers are people who at the end of the day want to help you. They're a resource, and they'll be the people who recommend you for future applications. So understanding that is really important, and just make sure to communicate with respect. Um, I see a question from Venkat. How often should we meet our school counselor? What are some of the reasons for meeting with a school counselor? So I think one thing that you should do with school counselors is you don't need to meet with them too often. You should meet with them if you have genuine questions about classes and planning. Personally, I met with my school counselor maybe a couple times about which classes I should take and when I could take them. But if you have, you can definitely use them as another resource besides your teachers and peers.
Okay, so now we'll just move on to the next question here. So, when it comes to things like extracurriculars, which can include sports, outer clubs, volunteering, it's easy for like your academics to take a hit. And so, how do you maintain academic proficiency? How do you maintain a good GPA when you start to take more extracurriculars?
Yeah, so this question is all just about time management, and I think a lot of it is also about how energized you are. A lot of times, for me personally, when I had sports, a long day of track, and I came back from school, and I had to study, I would be really tired. So one thing that's really important is to make sure you get sleep. I know that's hard, but as much as you can, sleep will really help you stay energized and able to focus on things. But having time management for this is really important. For me, that was those organizational tools I mentioned earlier, Google Calendar, even time blocking. And then when you're studying, make sure you're focused. So don't, if you can, try to put your phone away. Use techniques like Pomodoro, where you're studying for 25, 30 minutes, maybe 5-minute breaks. So that way, instead of an hour task turning into 3, 4 hours where you're on your phone and you're distracted, that hour is effectively used for studying. And you're not staying up too late to study. You're able to manage your time and you're able to manage all those different commitments. Okay. So I see multiple questions in the chat. We'll start with Raga. What electives should I choose to help my GPA as well as overall goals? So for electives, honestly, I think that this is one that's purely out of personal interest. I took classes like woodworking, and most electives will be classes that are relatively lighter in terms of homework and test load. So for this, I think it's really important to choose what you're interested in. High school should be an enjoyable experience, and if you're always worried just purely about grades, I don't think that's for me personally, that wouldn't be the way to go. So, uh, I think you should choose what you're interested in, and that'll make the rest of your experience easier as well. Um, so Shruth asked, how did you approach research in high school? Um, can I have a clarification on what exactly is meant by research, if possible? And uh, Nishtha asked, which is better, getting an A in a normal class or a B in an AP in honors class? Uh, I think I think getting an A in a normal class would be better than getting a B in an AP in honors class, but I don't think that should be something that prevents you from taking a challenge of an AP or honors class. You should. Uh, it's obviously better to have an A in an AP and honors class than an A in a normal class, but uh, yeah, out of those 2 options, I think an admissions committee you have to think about it from the way that, a college admissions committee might look at it. So they're for the most part, they're seeing so many applicants, and in a lot of high schools, grades are inflated, and, there's so many different people, so even just, like, one thing, you don't wanna be in a position where they might not look at your transcript super closely, and that's a limiting factor for what, um for what they might see. So I think in that situation, probably an A is better, but it shouldn't stop you from taking the opportunity to have a AP or honors class.
Thank you for that response. Um, I think you already mentioned a lot of like study techniques with the Pomodoro method, but I know a lot of students focus on like cramming for exams, but like you end up like forgetting the material soon after. In your experience, do you have any other study techniques that helped you retain information over long term?
Yeah, actually, this is something that is one of the most important things that I've done, especially recently, is active learning. And what I mean by active learning is, let's say there's a PDF that you're looking at and it's a notes and you're reading through it. Maybe you like write a few bullet points, but in 2, 3 days you don't remember. What I found really helps me is actively synthesizing that information. And when you're making your own connections in your brain about the material, that's a much better way to remember it. So if I was looking at notes, I would not look at the notes. I would write it down in my own words. I would draw diagrams of the information, and so when I came maybe 2 weeks later, I'd be able to explain it to other people. And a combination of all that will definitely help you with remembering that long term. So actively learning, I think, is the most important for that. Okay, Manoj asked, do teachers give a break because you're part of other activities such as sports? Teachers might be understanding this is very individualized, but for the most part, they won't give you a break necessarily. But at the same time, I think it should be very easy to handle. Everyone's dealing with extracurriculars, and uh, at some point, you have to be able to do multiple things. So uh, this is something that each individual is going to have to learn how to handle different things, and teachers most likely won't give you a break, and you shouldn't want them to necessarily either. Um, so Shrath asked, does research have any significance in college admissions? If I want to start research, where do I start? Great question. So research does have significance in college admissions depending on what you're applying to. Any extracurricular has significance, but let's say you're a medical applicant and you're someone who has a medical theme and a lot of your extracurriculars, you want to pursue medicine in the future. Research can be obviously very important for that. And the way to start, I would say, is look online for internships. If you have a connection that you can email, that'd be great as well. But just look for internships. You can even cold email professors. A lot of people are very willing to have students who are excited to learn work with them. So this is something that you're gonna have to take the initiative on, and you have to reach out to people. You might get a lot of people who say no, or they're too busy, whatever it may be. But if you take the initiative, you'll find an opportunity, and you can develop from there. So uh, that's how I would start. And yes, any extracurricular, including research, does have significance. Leah asked, how many APs should I take? I think that you should take as many APs as possible, but APs are not the end of the world. There's no, if you, in college, there were so many people I knew who took 3 APs total. I personally, I think I took 15 or 16. It's all about just how well you do in school, how well you're able to balance your extracurriculars, how well you write your essays. All of these kind of it's a holistic review process. So you shouldn't necessarily think, oh, I need to take 15, 16. I need to take every AP possible. Although if you can handle that, there's no harm in doing so.
Okay, thanks for going over those questions in the chat. And moving on to the next pre-submitted question, we have, do you have any tips about like having differing study strategies? Like, do you study differently for biology compared to like how you would study for physics? Or do they stay consistent for all subjects? How may they change?
Yeah, that's another good question. I think that for every teacher, for every class, there is different strategies, and you can start with something as basic as learning objectives. A lot of times, when a teacher has posts a PowerPoint, the first slide they'll skip over it in class, but the first slide will show learning objectives. During class, if you listen, there'll be things that they consistently emphasize. Those will be things that if you listen for carefully, you'll know that they'll possibly pop up in an exam later, pop up in some way or form. So making sure to focus on what the teacher emphasizes, and seeing what the learning objectives are can definitely change your approach to each class. Also, if you're really worried, you can honestly just email the teacher and see what they say, what to focus on. Especially in high school, teachers will definitely guide you in the right direction. So talk to teachers, look at the learning objectives, and look at class resources.
The next question is, looking back on your high school experience, is there one thing you wish you had done differently, whether it was academic or social, or even in terms of personal growth?
I think one thing that I would do differently is with extracurriculars, I would avoid just doing random extracurriculars, doing whatever you can find and do things that I'm genuinely interested in. So I'm someone who is very interested in medicine. So I thought that doing just out of the blue volunteer experiences just because it was a volunteer experience rather than looking for things that I would be genuinely interested in is something that I would change personally. And I definitely was able to do that in college, and that's something that really helped me. Manoj in the chat asked, from your experience, what do you think is a parent's role in helping students during high school? I think that that's honestly a really great question. I think that a parent should make sure that they are giving the child all the resources that they need. So, if I think it should be very driven by the kid at the end of the day. So if the kid asks you for uh, help with a tutor or something like that, or if the kid wants to do an extracurricular, I think the best way to do that would just be to like provide them with as many resources as possible. And when they ask for advice, but as much as possible, I think it should be this process should be driven by the kids. So I know it's really difficult, but letting go and letting the kid learn and make mistakes and grow from them is the most important thing that I would say. Um, which study method worked better for you, studying a little each day or cramming the night before the test? Does it depend on the person, or do you think one is universally better? Studying, consistently over time is 100% better. During my master's program, this is something I'd be really good at. So if there was a test in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I would make sure to consistently review material in small increments, even significantly before the exam date. And in high school, sometimes I would do that where I'd cram the night before, but you wouldn't necessarily remember that material after. So especially on cumulative exams, it'd make that more difficult to study for finals and later tests. But also, if there's like an AP exam at the end of the year, for example, and you cram the night before on the first test of the year, you're gonna have to review that material and honestly learn it from scratch even sometimes when you do that later. So if you build those habits and those foundations early on, that can help you in the future. Um, I mean, everything does depend on the person, but I universally, for the most part, I think studying consistently ahead of time is definitely the strategy and the way to go.
Okay. So for our next question, um we have a question about like just boredom in school, and it's like when you're bored in school, when you have moments of like lack of lack of motivation. What helps you stay motivated and what helps you push through?
Yeah, I think this is kind of ties into the finding interest in whatever you're learning about that I mentioned earlier, but Uh, one thing that you could do is talk to people with diverse perspectives on things. So, like in college, for example, I've never been someone who made music, but I had a roommate who made music, and talking to him about that, I found a genuine interest in making music, and that's something that I've been doing recently. So, let's say there's a subject that you're not interested in. If you know someone around you who is genuinely interested in that, let's say it's environmental science, and you know someone who wants to work in environments in environmental science in the future. If you talk to them and learn what makes them so interested, that can honestly add a lot to your perspective. But you can also figure out ways to apply things, to apply what you learn outside of the specific class context. That's something that really helped me. And you're gonna have to find ways to be genuinely interested in whatever you learn. So, yeah, I'd say as a whole, just learn how to apply things differently, talk to people around you, and go from there to figure out ways to engage yourself.
Thank you. The next question was, not every course in high school feels immediately like relevant, but I know that a lot of them end up playing a key role in like our jobs later on or even for college. So, do you have any classes that ended up being like surprisingly useful to your journey as becoming a doctor?
Yeah, AP Psychology is probably my favorite class that I've ever taken. Um, Actually, with my brother, like, a lot of things he was 10 years younger than me, so everything that I was learning in AP Psychology, I was thinking, "How can I apply this to him to help him grow in the future?" One thing that we learned was attachment theory, and attachment theory is the idea that someone who's hugged consistently as a child can form secure relationships as they grow into an adult, and they'll be more trusting, they'll be able to form more intimate relationships. So with my brother, for example, I would learn that in class. I'd come home and I'd tell my parents, okay, we have to hug him as much as possible to make sure that this helps him in the future. And there's little things like that in different classes. But if there's one class that I would recommend for this example specifically, AP Psychology, everyone should take that. It's one of my favorite classes ever. I see in the chat, you mentioned Pomodoro. Can you explain more about that, please? Pomodoro is a very simple technique. It's just focus studying for 30 minutes, put your phone away, put all the distractions away, and then take a 5-minute break. Make sure that you're only taking a 5-minute break. So that way you can consistently reset, but you're not going on long, let's say a scroll through TikTok, you're not going on long side adventures. And you're able to spend a majority of the time focused while you don't feel too burnt out. Because for anybody, it might be super difficult to just stay locked in on something for 3, 4 hours with no breaks. So just making sure you take those small breaks in between and those increments, that's what Pomodoro is about.
Okay, thanks for explaining about that. And for our next question, we have a question about parents, and it says that many students face pressure from our parents, whether it's about grades or other things. Did you experience certain pressures similar to that? And if you did, how did you navigate that? How did you deal with that while staying academically on top of things?
Yeah, I think one thing that during in the moment while I definitely did face pressure from my parents to maintain good academics, but uh I think it's important to have the perspective now, especially that I have is they're doing it out of the best interest for you, and you should take value in that. It's good to be self-motivated. It's good to have that pressure on you, but at the same time, it's something that you're gonna have to learn to deal with in life. So I think for me, that was something that helped me build an important life skill: how to manage stressful conditions, how to be good under pressure. I think if you view it as a learning experience, that can help a lot. Um, in the chat, I see a question: how much GPA every university looks for, like UCLA. Um, I think what the question trying to ask is how much does a university look at GPA? I think GPA is essentially like a checkbox or a filter mechanism. So if you have a university like any top 20, you'll have maybe a filter. Maybe the first set of applicants that they review will be people above a certain GPA, above a certain SAT or ACT score. And from there, they look at everything else, your extracurriculars, your essays, your recommendations. So I think that's kind of just an entryway into the door. And obviously you want that entryway. You don't want people to disqualify your application purely off of your grades. And I think that's really all it's about. It's not anything more than that. It's not if you have a 4.0 GPA, it doesn't mean you're standing out as an applicant. It's not gonna do anything for your application and say, oh wow, this person, I need to take them into your school. That's what everything else is about. So it's just making sure that you cross that initial filter and that they don't rule out your application just because of those scores.
Thank you for the feedback. Just as a reminder for the audience, we highly encourage asking any questions you guys have. Um, I know I had one question myself. I was wondering if for you, did it work out if you set like more strict schedules for I'm gonna do this at exactly this time? Or like did you adapt more during the week based off of your workload?
Personally, I didn't set strict schedules. I just said this is everything I want to get done during the day. And whenever I could, I would set like maybe a time block. So if there was a worksheet that I wanted to get done during the day, I'd say like, okay, I want to get this done between 3 and 5. Personally, I think that worked for me because I don't like having very strict schedules, but this is all very individualized. So it depends on your approach. If you're someone who can maintain exact schedules, that might work better for you. So 2 questions about teacher recommendations. How important is it and which teachers should you approach? Teacher recommendations are very important. I think that's one of the most important aspects of your application, and it's one of the things that you can't really control, so you wanna make sure that you're not putting yourself behind the 8 ball in that sense. And which teacher to approach for recommendations? I think the 2 things you need to consider here are or 3 things actually. How good will the teacher be at writing a recommendation? I had a teacher, Mr. Seymour, who was like one of my favorite teachers, but you want to make sure that it's someone who isn't maybe overly casual or informal. All your teachers will be qualified. The second thing is which subject do they teach? So if you're applying for a STEM major, I think it's important to have STEM teachers be some of the people that are recommending you. So think about the subject, who specifically is going to be writing it, and then think about your relationship with them as well. If you have a teacher who maybe you missed 7 assignments in their class, they probably aren't going to be able to write you a genuinely good recommendation. You want it to be something that isn't generic, that when the admissions committee reads it, they don't just forget about you immediately. It should stand out. So it should be a teacher that they can write about specific experiences with you in their class. Hopefully, you're someone involved in that class, and yeah, that's how it should go. How important does volunteer hours recommendation play for admission? I think it depends again on what major you're applying for. So if you're applying for a service-oriented major like medicine, volunteer hours are super important. But let's say you're applying for CS, that might not necessarily fit in with the theme of your application. I think if it's between volunteer hours and nothing, you should always pursue it though. You should always make sure that you're doing something in your extracurriculars.
I have a pretty specific question for you next. It's about, again, obviously about GPA. When it comes to like a top college like UCLA, what does like the range of GPAs that you described earlier? What is like the minimum bar for a GPA when it comes to getting into a top college?
I'm actually not sure about the minimum bar. You can definitely find that information online. I would say most likely you should have something above maybe a 3.8. Uh, even something like a 3.76 might not disqualify you necessarily, but it's also about little things on your transcript. You don't necessarily want to see a B is okay, but you don't want like very low points. And generally, you should have a steady progression in your GPA. if possible. If you do have like a lower grade, ideally that would be freshman, sophomore year, and you can at least show over years that you have that learning experience from there. Another question in the chat, does starting a club have an impact and how significant is that? I think that's something that I actually did in high school. I started a STEM research club. I think it does have an impact. It's significant if you, it definitely is significant because it shows leadership and you should have leadership on your application. But I think it depends on how you write about it in your application and what specifically you do. A lot of colleges can tell when you're you're just doing it just because you think it'll look good on application. So make sure that it's something that you care about, that you're doing something positive with it, that you're impacting students, that you have tangible things to write about when you do apply.
One more question I have again is about extracurriculars. When it comes to extracurriculars, do you think that comparatively to GPA, should I choose like a 3.8 GPA and more extracurriculars, or should I choose like a 4.0 GPA and less extracurriculars? Do you think there's an impact in that circumstance?
Yeah, in that circumstance, I don't think you should sacrifice everything for the GPA. Ideally, you want a 4.0 GPA with extracurriculars, but obviously, if that doesn't work out, you definitely don't want to have no extracurriculars or no impactful extracurriculars that there won't really be anything to write home about you when people think about your application. So I think you should show that you're more than just someone who spent all their time studying. Uh, okay, a couple other questions. If my grades start to slip, is it still possible to recover and get back on track? Yeah, absolutely it is. You should, one thing that I do personally is I journal. So when you let's say you have a bad test, you can journal, you can reflect on why that might have happened and then figure out how to improve from there. So track your progress, monitor what happened, and figure out ways to improve. Another thing that I did was so recently actually I had a test that I didn't do well on, and it made it so that every test in the future I would need to get a really good grade to have an A in the class. And so what I did was I actually met with the teacher one-on-one, and I talked to them about what exactly they're looking for, how to improve, and from there, actually, that was super helpful. From there, I was able to get 100 on every single test and get an A in the class. So I think meeting with the teacher one-on-one, journaling, reflecting, whatever it is that you can do to figure out ways to improve it's definitely possible. Um, how do competitions like DECA, NSB, Science Olympiad, HOSA impact? I think that's definitely something that is impactful. I did DECA, Science Bowl, host. I actually did all of those. So uh, I think that's definitely impactful, especially if you can succeed in those. I think that's definitely something you should pursue. So yeah, it definitely would help. Are there certain clubs that are better to join? Does it not matter what clubs you join as long as you have a genuine interest in them and are able to tell? I think, yeah, that's exactly what I think. So joining a club necessarily won't have a huge impact. That's all about what you're interested in. But if you have a leadership position within a club, let's say you're the treasurer of a club, the secretary of a club, president of a club, and then you actually do something with it, that's something that I would put on your application. That shows leadership and initiative.
Thank you for answering all the questions in the chat. I had another question. Looking back on your high school experience, what was one thing that you were maybe stressed out or really worried about that didn't actually matter as much in the long run?
That's a good question. I'm not sure how to answer that, but I think I don't know if there was necessarily something that I personally I wasn't super stressed out about much in high school besides my grades, but maybe one thing that I would say is not something to worry about too much is the AP versus non-AP thing. Uh I like I said, there was a year where I took 6 APs in a year, and I was really stressed out about it during it. But I'm not sure necessarily how much that might impact your overall application. So I think worrying about which APs to take, that might be something um, that I would say for that question. So a beginner-friendly book that would help working professionals in psychology. Um, This might be a dense read. One of my favorite books ever is called Sapiens. It's by Yuval Noah Harari. It's a nonfiction book, and it really helped me kind of understand just little things about why humans do certain things, and it just helps you understand a lot about human behavior. If you're interested in psychology, that's definitely a book I would recommend. And it is still it's one of the first books that I read that without having a class instruct me to, I wanted to take notes on it. I wanted to remember what I learned from it. So that's a book I would highly recommend. Which is better, public health or clinical health and medical science? Um, If you're talking, I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that question, but if you're talking about pursuing medicine, clinical health is definitely better. You want experiences where you're talking to patients, and if you can show that, that's really important for being in that position as a working professional.
I know that you're going into like the medical field. So when it came to your high school, what did you do in high school? What classes did you take? Things like that that really helped set you up specifically for that field.
I think my extracurriculars were helpful. So I did National Science Bowl, and I initially found a love for biology through studying biology for that competition. Which for people who don't know, National Science Bowl is kind of a Jeopardy style trivia competition with a science focus. So I initially studied biology through there. I really enjoyed that. I think extracurriculars uh, are the best way to prepare yourself for that field. Outside of that, I also volunteered at Swedish Hospital in Seattle. I did a couple internships in public health. So I did a internship at Harborview Medical Center. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to prepare yourself based on if you know your interest. A lot of people don't know their interest, and that's totally okay. But if you do know your interest and it is medicine, those are things I would do. I would volunteer with patients. I would pursue internships, research, anything that you can do to get some experience in the field.
Um, Another question was, do you think it's better to sacrifice an hour of sleep to study a little bit more, or is sleep always the better choice to make when it comes to studying or sleep?
There's a lot of nuance to that question. I think it depends on where you are in the exam. If you're so far behind that you know if you go to bed, you wake up, you know you're not going to do well on the test. It depends, like maybe you want to stay up a little bit later and make sure that you do that preparation. But if you feel somewhat ready and you're just stressed about little things and last second review and maybe you'll forget something, in that case, I think sleep is definitely important to always get sleep if you can.
There was another pre-submitted question. Not every student has the chance to serve as a club officer. What advice would you give to those who don't hold leadership positions but still want to make the most out of their involvement in the club?
If you don't hold a leadership position but still want to make most, so it depends on the club. Let's say there's a club like HOSA, for example. HOSA is a club at Redmond High School where there is a president, there's a secretary, there are all those positions, but you can still make the most out of it through the competition itself. So if you do the competition, let's say you go to state, you win some prize, you show that you're succeeding. That's something you can still put on your application. That's definitely something that's a impactful experience. And even if you're not someone who's leading efforts in the club, you can make the most out of what the club is about. In the STEM research club I started, we talked a lot about different things like science fairs and presentations that you can involve yourself in. So if you go out and do what the club is advocating for and succeed in those areas or show involvement in those areas, I think that's the best way to pursue it.
When it comes to extracurriculars, are there certain extracurriculars you could take to sort of influence your grades? Are there extracurriculars that like would studying for help your grades? Could they work that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, Science Bowl definitely did help that way. Studying for Science Bowl was kind of an initial preparation to AP Biology. And AP Biology has a different focus than like mainly knowledge. There's a lot of lab work and different things that you need to understand, and it might be a little bit more in depth than some of the things that Science Bowl focuses on. But there are definitely competitions that you can pursue. So depending on your interest, uh, if there is something that you're studying for, it definitely will apply. So uh, yeah.
We'll be wrapping up the session soon. So if there are any more questions, feel free to say it in the chat. Otherwise we can wrap up and I can give a quick thank you note and then we'll be good.
Okay, cool. So just to some key takeaways that we can talk about just to end this, to wrap it up. I think that, as I said earlier, just the theme of academic excellence, it's built through consistent habits. It's not just going to be an overnight success. So make sure that you're reflecting on what you're doing right, figure out what works for you, and learn from there. Uh, as I said, GPA does matter, but other skills matter just as much. So think about it more as a way to build skills, build your curiosity, communication skills, learn how to be resilient when things don't always go well. And I think that's the most important thing to focus on there. Learn strong study strategies, build good teacher relationships, and make that foundation for lifelong learning. And yeah, I think that's the most important takeaways from this. I know it's possible to be very stressed about grades, but think about it as something to learn from. Think about it as a learning experience, and find things to be genuinely interested in.
Okay. Yeah, thank you all for attending this peer up session and a big thanks to Manish for being a part of this as our speaker. And we hope you found something valuable today. And if you have any questions or if you need further support, feel free to reach up to the Peer Up team on our website. And we'd love to hear your suggestions on future topics. Let us know what you'd like to cover next. And if you need any details, any information, you can feel free to visit our website, which is peerup.org. If you enjoyed today's session, make sure you attend the next one and please let anybody else know who might be interested to join the community. Again, thank you all for attending. And again, a big thanks to Manish for being a part of this. And today our session was dedicated on how to get a high GPA, which is a very important factor of student success in college admissions. We would love to hear for you about different topics which you can submit on our website.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody for attending.